Today we'll be working in my workbook called Elijah, and this is on a person, not a group of scriptures. And this is one of my very first books, so it has a little different look to it than my later books. Looking at the table of contents, we have completed the first two chapters. First time we see Elijah on the scene is in 1 Kings 17, where he helps a widow in Zarephath. The Zarephath is outside the area of Israel, and he stays there for the balance of the 3 years. First part of the 3 years, he stayed by the brook Cherith and got fed by ravens. But when that dried up, he then went to Zarephath, and a widow took care of him until the end of the famine. Now in chapter 2, we've come to near the end of the famine, and Elijah comes back into the land of Israel, and he meets Obadiah, who is a priest of God, a good priest of God, and tells him that he's going to see King Ahab today and let King Ahab know that. And Obadiah is concerned because he doesn't want to lose his life. So he might make sure that that what he says is actually going to happen. Elijah says, yes, I am going to see Ahab by the end of the day. And at the end of this chapter, we do see Ahab and Elijah coming together. And Ahab calls Elijah the troublemaker of Israel because he brought the famine, which he didn't, and the drought, which he didn't. He just forecasted in. And of course, Elijah is always against Ahab because Ahab's a bad king, and Elijah is the king of God. And he tells Ahab to bring 850 prophets total of Baal and Ashtoreth up to Mount Carmel, and he'll meet him there. So that's probably what we're doing. Yeah, Elijah and the prophets of Baal. Okay, so Elijah and the prophets of Baal, 1 Kings 18, 20 through 40. Ahab summoned all the people of Israel and the prophets to Mount Carmel. Then Elijah stood in front of them and said, how much longer will you waver, hobbling between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, then follow him. The people were completely silent. Our map doesn't show where Mount Carmel is. Find the Great Sea. Color the sea blue. Now find Tyre and Joppa on the coastline. So we have Tyre and Joppa. Between them, do you see the bump that sticks out? That's marked Carmel. Circle it on the map. How many prophets were summoned? Remember, 450 prophets. 400 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Ashtoreth were summoned. Who is Ahab? And again, this is looking back at knowing a little bit. What kingdom did he rule? Israel. He was a bad king. His father and the king before him was Omri. And how many years did Ahab rule? 22 years. And what was Elijah asking the people? Decide which God you're going to follow. Okay. Elijah said to them, I am the only prophet of the Lord who is left, but Baal has 450 prophets. Now bring 2 bulls. The prophets of Baal may choose whichever one they wish and cut it into pieces and lay it on the wood of the altar, but without setting fire to it. I'll prepare the other bull and lay it on the wood on the altar, but not set fire to it. Then call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. The God who answers by setting fire to the wood is the true God. And all the people agreed. So here are 2 altars, and so put wood on the altars. So this was a drawing book. Then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, you go first, for there are many of you. Choose one of the bulls and prepare it and call on the name of your God, but do not set fire to the wood. So they prepared one of the bulls and placed it on the altar. Then they called on the name of Baal from morning till noontime, shouting, "O Baal, answer us." But there was no reply of any kind. Then they danced, hobbling around the altar they had made. What were they not supposed to do to their altar? Set fire to the wood. How long of time did they dance? Um, from morning till noontime. Did their God answer them? No, he did not. About noontime, Elijah began mocking them. You'll have to shout louder, he scoffed, for surely he is God. Perhaps he's daydreaming or is relieving himself, or maybe he's away on a trip or is asleep and needs to be awakened. So they shouted louder, and following their normal custom, they cut themselves with knives and swords until blood gushed out. They raved all afternoon until the time of evening sacrifice, but there still was no sound, no reply, no response. Elijah mocked the prophets of Baal with many questions. Which questions did he use? Your God is away on a trip. Yes. Your God is busy. Your God is asleep and needs to be awakened. Yes. Um, he's daydreaming, not thinking of you. Um, your God can't hear. Shout louder. And your God is going to the bathroom and can't be disturbed at the moment. So he was mocking them with a lot of statements. Then Elijah called to the people, "Come over here." They all crowded around him as he repaired the altar of the Lord that had been torn down. He took 12 stones, one to represent each of the tribes of Israel, and he used the stones to rebuild the altar in the name of the Lord. Then he dug a trench around the altar large enough to hold about 3 gallons of water. He piled wood on the altar, cut the bull into pieces, and laid the pieces on the wood. So we have a diagram here. What did the 12 stones represent? The 12 tribes of Israel. How much was Elijah's trench big enough to hold? 3 gallons of water. What do you think that was the liquid that was meant by 3 gallons? 3 gallons of water. Now put the wood on top of the altar in a bowl. Do you remember what time of day this is? This is in the evening for the evening sacrifice. Then he said, then he said, fill 4 large jars with water and pour the water over the offering and the wood. After he'd done this, he said, do it the same again. And when they were finished, he said, do it a third time. So they did as he said, and the water ran around the altar and even filled the trench. How many times did they douse the altar? 3 times. So that makes how many jars of water? 12. At the usual time for offering the evening sacrifice, Elijah the prophet walked up to the altar and prayed, O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, prove today that you are God in Israel and that I am your servant. Prove that I've done all this at your command. O Lord, answer me. Answer me so these people will know that you, O Lord, are God and you have brought them back to yourself. Immediately the fire of the Lord flashed down from heaven and burned up the young bull, the wood, the stones, and the dust. It even licked up all the water in the trench. Number the stones. How many are there? 12. Okay. And when all the people saw it, they fell face down on the ground and cried out, the Lord, he is God. Yes, the Lord, he is God. Then Elijah commanded, seize all the prophets of Baal. Don't let a single one escape. So the people seized them all, and Elijah took them down to Kishon Valley and killed them there. What is the name of the sea that the Kishon River flows from? Um, flows from the Mediterranean Sea. In today's world, the Great Sea is the body of water now known as the Mediterranean Sea. On the map, Elijah follows the Kishon River east and then down to what city? Um, Dothan, perhaps? Probably Dothan. Okay, well, we've got a D, so it's Dothan. What mountains lie just below Samaria? Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim. After the city of Dothan, what town does the map show Elisha going to? Samaria. G, Gilgal. What did the people conclude after seeing God send fire down to Elisha's altar? That God is the one true God. So we come to the end of this chapter. So, number 2, how many times did the people douse the Lord's altar? 3. 3 times, yeah. 3, Baal has 450 of them. Prophets. 4, on what mountain did the contest between Elisha and the prophets of Baal take place? Carmel. 1 down, what did the Lord send down from heaven? Fire. And 2, how many stones in the Lord's altar? 12. So that's the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.